I was sitting in my study earlier this afternoon, watching the sunlight filter through the oak trees outside my window here in Franklin. There's a particular kind of stillness that comes with a Tennessee autumn, the kind that makes you lean back in your chair and really think about the passage of time. I'm 77 now. At this age, you don't just feel the years in your memories. You feel them in your bones, in the way your eyes take a little longer to adjust to the light, and in that quiet, persistent sense that your body isn't quite the fortress it used to be. I've started calling it the cellular decline. It's not a sudden cliff you fall off, but a slow, silent receding of the tide. And for a long time, I thought that tide was something I had no power to stop. Most of us over 60 live with a shadow of concern. We don't talk about it much at Sunday dinner or over a game of cards, but it's there. We wonder if the next doctor's visit will bring the news we all dread. We wonder if the fatigue we feel is just getting older, or if something more sinister is taking root. I remember when Eleanor, my wife, went through her own period of health uncertainty. I won't go into the details, she's a private woman, but watching her face that mountain changed me. I realized then that I had spent decades being a passive observer of my own health. I ate what was put in front of me, I worked hard, and I assumed that if I didn't feel sick, I was well. But wellness after 60 isn't a default setting. It's a choice we make every time we pick up a fork. My daughter Rebecca is a nutritionist, and she's been a bit of a guardian angel for me in this stage of my life. She doesn't lecture, but she leaves papers on my desk, actual scientific journals, and she talks to me about what she calls targeted nutrition. She told me something a few months ago that I couldn't get out of my head. She said, "Dad, your cells aren't just reacting to time, they're reacting to instructions. Every meal is a set of instructions you're sending to your DNA." That idea haunted me. If I was sending instructions, what was I telling my body to do? Was I telling it to surrender to the decline, or was I giving it the tools to fight back? I spent weeks in this chair with my glasses on and a yellow legal pad, trying to distill the noise. There is so much conflicting advice out there that it can make your head spin. One day fat is the enemy, the next it's the savior. But when I looked at the research specifically regarding how our cells defend themselves, particularly against the kind of abnormal growth that leads to breast cancer and other age-related illnesses, I found something remarkable. There are 9 specific foods that don't just nourish you, they actually seem to act like a security detail for your cells. They contain compounds that quite literally make it hard for cancer cells to survive. The first one I discovered was something I had been drinking for years, but I had been doing it all wrong. It's green tea. Now, I've always been a tea drinker, but I usually just grabbed whatever was in the cupboard. When I started reading about EGCG, that's the powerful polyphenol in green tea, I was staggered. The literature suggests that this compound can actually seek out and destroy abnormal cells while leaving your healthy ones completely alone. It's like a smart missile for your immune system. I read a study that showed women who consistently drink green tea have a 30% lower risk of a cancer recurrence. 30%. If a pill gave you those odds, it would be the most famous drug in the world. But here was the catch, and it's a mistake I had been making for decades. I used to boil the water, toss in the tea bag, and let it sit. Rebecca pointed out that pouring boiling water directly onto green tea leaves actually kills about 85% of those beneficial compounds. You're essentially scalding the medicine. Now I have a new ritual. I boil the water and then I sit and wait. I set a timer for 3 minutes to let it cool down to about 80 degrees Celsius. Only then do I pour it. It's a small change, but it means I'm actually getting the protection I'm paying for. I think about that EGCG as I sip it, imagining it cutting off the supply lines to any cells that shouldn't be there. It's a process called anti-angiogenesis, literally preventing the formation of new blood vessels that tumors need to grow. It's like cutting off the enemy's food supply before the battle even starts. As I dug deeper into my notes, I moved from my tea to the vegetable drawer. I've always had a complicated relationship with broccoli. Growing up in Ohio, my mother used to boil it until it was a gray, mushy mess that smelled like an old shoe. I hated it. But when I learned about sulforaphane, I realized I had to make peace with the cruciferous family. the broccoli, the cauliflower, the Brussels sprouts. Sulforaphane is incredible. It sends a direct death signal to cancer cells. It's having a conversation with your body at a molecular level, telling the healthy cells to stay strong and the abnormal ones to pack their bags. I remember talking to a friend of mine, a fellow named Harold who lives down the road. Harold is 72 and has always been a meat and potatoes man. He told me he'd rather skip a meal than eat a plate of sprouts. But I told him what I'd learned about preparation. Most people overcook these vegetables, which destroys the enzymes. I've started lightly steaming mine for just 3 to 4 minutes. You want them bright green and still a little crunchy. That light steam actually increases the bioavailability of the sulforaphane by 300% compared to eating them raw. Now, Eleanor and I roast our Brussels sprouts with a little garlic and a sprinkle of Parmesan. It doesn't feel like a chore anymore, it feels like a strategy. And Harold? He's actually started eating cauliflower rice. He told me the other day he feels like his energy has doubled. I don't know if it's the cauliflower or the sense of control he's gained, but I'll take it. Then there are the berries. I've always had a sweet tooth. It's my great weakness. But berries are like a dessert that fights for you. They're packed with anthocyanins, which are the pigments that give them those deep blues and reds. These compounds don't just look pretty, they work to suffocate cancer cells. During my research, I was surprised to find that women who eat berries consistently show lower inflammatory markers in as little as 8 weeks. Inflammation is the soil in which disease grows, and berries are like a cold rain that keeps that soil from getting too hot. I'll tell you a little secret I learned to save a bit of money too. I used to think I had to buy the most expensive fresh organic berries at the market. But it turns out that frozen berries are often even better. The freezing process actually breaks down the cell walls of the fruit, making the antioxidants even more available to your body. Every morning now, I put a handful of frozen blueberries into a blender with some yogurt. As the color bleeds out into the mix, I think about those anthocyanins going to work. It's a simple habit, but at 77 I've learned that life is built on simple habits. Before I go any further, I want to stop for a second. I've been looking at the numbers for this channel, and it turns out that a lot of you who watch these videos and follow along with my notes haven't actually subscribed yet. I'm telling you this because I worry about the people who drift in and out. This journey, this fight against cellular decline, it's not something you do once and forget. It's a conversation. If you haven't yet, I'd really appreciate it if you could verify that you're subscribed. It helps me know that we're building a community of people who are serious about protecting their health in these later years. We need to stick together. After the berries, I had to look at my protein. For a long time, I was confused about meat. But the real breakthrough for me was fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel. These are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and the research here is just mind-blowing. Women with higher levels of omega-3s in their blood have a 32% reduction in the risk of breast cancer recurrence. It creates an environment inside the body that is virtually impossible for a cancer cell to thrive in. It's like trying to start a fire in a rainstorm. I've started making sure I have salmon at least twice a week. I've noticed that it helps with the stiffness in my hands too. But Rebecca gave me a tip I hadn't considered. Wild-caught fish have about 50% more omega-3s than the farmed kind. And if salmon is too expensive, I go for the sardines. They're smaller, so they have less mercury, but they're packed with those healthy fats. It took me a while to get used to the taste of sardines, but now I put them on a bit of whole grain toast with a squeeze of lemon. It's a light lunch that makes me feel like I'm doing something right for my future self. Then there is the golden spice, turmeric. I'm sure you've heard of it. It contains curcumin, which is perhaps nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. It works by blocking multiple pathways that cancer cells use to grow. It's like putting up a roadblock at every exit of a highway. But most people get no benefit from it because they don't know the trick. Curcumin is very hard for the body to absorb on its own. You can eat it all day and most of it will just pass right through you. But if you add just a pinch of black pepper, the absorption increases by 2,000%. 2,000%. I saw a woman at our local community center who had been struggling with joint pain for years. She started a ritual of a daily turmeric latte, Just warm milk, turmeric, a bit of honey, and that crucial pinch of pepper. Within 6 weeks, she was walking without her cane. Her inflammatory markers had plummeted. I've started using fresh turmeric root lately. It's a bit messy and it stains your fingers orange, but the flavor is so much deeper than the powder. I grate it into my evening soups. It's a small, golden investment in my cellular health. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the dynamic duo, garlic and onions. They contain organosulfur compounds that have been shown to slow the growth of cancer cells by 40%. There was a study in Europe that followed 300,000 women, and the results were dose-dependent, meaning the more garlic and onions they ate, the lower their risk became. But there's a catch here too. You can't just chop the garlic and throw it in the pan. You have to crush it or chop it, and then, this is the hard part, you have to let it sit for 10 minutes before you cook it. That 10-minute wait allows the enzymes to activate. If you cook it right away, you lose the very thing that makes it a medicine. I've learned to be patient. I chop my garlic first thing, then I go prep the rest of the meal. By the time I'm ready to cook, the garlic is ready to fight. I've also had to reconsider my greens. I used to think a bit of iceberg lettuce on a sandwich was enough. But at 77, I've moved to the darker side. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard. These are rich in folate, which is essential for repairing DNA. Every day, our DNA gets slightly damaged by the environment, by stress, by just living. Folate is the repair crew that goes in and fixes the breaks. I remember a time when I felt like I was living in slow motion. I was just so tired all the time. Rebecca suggested I double my intake of leafy greens. I started putting kale in my morning smoothies. You can't even taste it with the berries. And within a week, the fog started to lift. The deeper the green, the more chlorophyll it contains, and that chlorophyll has its own anti-cancer properties. I look for the darkest, sturdiest leaves I can find now. It's like eating the very energy of the sun. As I worked my way through my list, I came to something I used to think was just a garnish: mushrooms. But mushrooms are nature's most underrated immune boosters. They contain beta-glucans, which supercharge your immune system, helping it to better detect and eliminate abnormal cells. It's like giving your white blood cells a pair of high-powered binoculars. Modern medicine is finally starting to validate what traditional healers have known for centuries. I've started including a mix of mushrooms in my weekly stir-fries. They provide a sort of ongoing 24-hour immune support that I think is vital when you're over 60. Finally, there is the pomegranate. It's a bit of a cancer cell assassin. It contains compounds that can reduce the risk of cancer progression and even interfere with a tumor's blood supply. For women with hormone-sensitive concerns, pomegranate is particularly interesting because it can actually help block excess estrogen production. I know the seeds can be a bit of a hassle to get out, but I've found that 100% pure pomegranate juice, the kind with no added sugar, is just as effective and much easier to manage. I mix a little bit of it with some sparkling water in the afternoon. It feels like a celebration, but I know it's actually a defensive maneuver. I look at this list: the green tea, the broccoli, the berries, the fish, the turmeric, the garlic, the greens, the mushrooms, and the pomegranate, and I don't see a diet. I see a strategy. I see a way to navigate this cellular decline with dignity and strength. It's not about fear. I'm not eating these things because I'm terrified of what might happen. I'm eating them because I love my life. I love my morning walks with Eleanor. I love the way my grandson Daniel looks at me when I'm explaining how a steam engine works. We often fall into the trap of thinking that health is something that happens to us. We wait for the symptoms, and then we wait for the doctor to give us a pill. But what I've learned in these 77 years is that the most powerful medicine isn't in a pharmacy, it's in the grocery store. It's in the way we prepare our tea and the way we chop our garlic. It's in the intention we bring to the dinner table. I've seen people give up. I've seen them decide that because they're over 60 or 70, the damage is done and it's too late to change. But the science tells a different story. Your cells are listening right now. They're waiting for instructions. You can start sending a new set of orders today. You can decide that you're going to give your body the tools it needs to fight back naturally. It's about strategy, not restriction. It's about eating with knowledge and letting go of the guilt. I've lived long enough to know that we don't get many second chances in life, but our health is one area where the body is incredibly forgiving if we just give it half a chance. I'm going to keep taking my notes. I'm going to keep reading the papers Rebecca leaves for me, and I'm going to keep sharing what I find with you, because I think we're all in this together. We're all trying to make sense of this later chapter of our lives, and I think it can be the best chapter if we're smart about it. Now that you know these 9 foods that can help your cells stand their ground, there's another side to the coin. There are a few things that we've been told are fine that are actually doing more damage than we realize. I've spent the last few days looking into those, and I think you're going to be surprised by what I found. There are only a very few select foods that have been consistently linked to an increased risk of our bodies failing us, and I think it's just as important to know what to leave on the shelf as it is to know what to put in your basket. I've put all of that into another conversation, which I'll link for you here. I'd love for you to join me over there so we can finish this picture. But for now, take a breath. Maybe go make yourself a cup of green tea, and remember to let the water cool for 3 minutes. Your cells will thank you for it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself, be attentive, and remember, you have more power than you think.